Here tonight. Thank you so much for joining the 6 steps to be the best ever version of yourself with regards to overcoming self-doubt. It's fantastic to have you as part of the webinar, so thank you so much for joining us and thank you so much for being here. Lots of things I want to talk to you about this evening, certainly around self-doubt, but some of the other issues I would like to talk to you about is why women become self-doubting, the effect that self-doubt has on us as women, and also to look at a range of different strategies to overcome self-doubt. So one of the things I want to say at the very beginning is that here's the thing. I actually started the Empowering Women to Thrive program a couple of years ago, and largely I did that because I wanted to help women to become more, I guess, empowered and more powerful in their own lives. And so part of what I'm doing here is I'm actually trying to have a look at, or help you have a look at those things that are actually difficult for you, those things that might make you self-doubting. And I reckon at the end of the day, I'm really tired of seeing so many of my female gender colleagues and friends and females overall be self-doubting. So let's have a really great webinar. Let's see if there's anything I can do to help you improve your self-doubt so that you become a lot more confident, and let's see what we can do to turn things around. Okay, so just a little bit about me. I know some of you, there's a lot of you on the line at the moment, and some of you know me, some of you I haven't seen before, I don't recognize your name. Not a problem. I thought I'll just briefly tell you who I am. So for those of you who do know who I am, and for those of you who have seen the first 1 or 2 slides about who am I generally keep the same slides because it just prevents me from having to redo them. But who am I? Well, I'm a coach of women. I own 2 businesses. One is in leadership and team development, as most of you know, and the other one is called Empowering Women to Thrive. I've been working in leadership and executive coaching for many years. I work in Africa, Fiji, and Australia, and I have a deep connection with and passion for growing women at all levels. I'll explain as I go through the presentation that I've also got a long background in working in domestic violence. And I think that the reason I share that is because it's been a really long journey for me helping a lot of women in this particular space. A lot of very sad and tragic situations, but also some really fantastic situations where some of the people, the women and the children with whom I have worked, have really grown and thrived. And hopefully I'll be able to help you and others who might be in a similar situation, or if not in that kind of situation, just people, just beautiful women who really struggle with feeling confident and good about themselves and their lives. I believe that the way that I like to work with women is to help them lead the lives they were born to lead. So a lot of women, even for example in the corporate sector or in the community sector, I worked with a lot of community sector females today, I don't know, lots of fear, lots of self-doubt, lots of limiting beliefs. We're running a program at the moment in one of the huge not-for-profit organizations called Empowering Women to Thrive, and it's a 7-stage program, and we look at different things in each of the stages, so resilience, negative thinking, you know, the concepts of personal empowerment. And it's really interesting because there's 12 women in the group, and what I notice is that all of them really struggle, each and every one of them, with self-doubt. And what's equally as interesting is that one of them is a really high-positioned executive, and she still struggles with self-doubt and a lack of confidence. So part of my mission, if you like, is to try and start really helping women across all different nations, colors, races, and creeds to become a lot more confident about their lives. In a way of a very brief background, I've worked with families, marriages, and individuals. Actually, it's for about 25 years now. 2006, I worked with 604 marriages in 1 year, and really interesting times to help couples try and get their relationships back on track, or sadly when they can't, then ultimately to separate, I guess, more amicably than they may have had they not gone to some sort of conflict resolution. I write books, I write ebooks, I write articles for the newspaper, and I speak at about 20 conferences a year across the 3 continents. So overall, love my work and very, very committed to helping women of all levels. Just a couple cheeky little photographs of me with some of the clients, so females and men, some in Fiji, some in Africa. But I guess I'm really, really lucky to have the most amazing work and to be able to help people grow and to help organizations thrive. So my work with women, as I say, I coach and train thousands of women and have done actually for over 25 years. And I always laugh at this. Often when I work with women, you know, I think one of the key things to think about us as a gender is that women are absolutely, we are overworked. So we do the cooking, we do the cleaning, we are the friend, we're the guide, the mentor, we're the coach. You know, we're there for the children, we're there for the neighbors, we do everything. And I think that one of the blogs I recently wrote was on this, and in fact I've just changed my LinkedIn profile to talk about this. You know, that women are the most remarkable people. We're quite a remarkable gender in many ways, and we do so much for others, and we do so much for our children, and if we have them, or friends and family. But what's interesting about us is that so often we don't look after ourselves first. It's everybody first, and then it's us. And I think one of the key things, I'm on this little mission in the last few months, is we really have to start thinking about the lives that we're leading. It's really important to start saying, I'm tired of the self-doubt. I'm tired of all the things that are not working in my life. I'm tired of feeling the way I do all the time, and doing as much as you possibly can to, come on, start, you know, getting out of this place. If you're somebody who's said to yourself over the last 10, 15, 20 years, I really want to overcome the self-doubt, I really want to improve my confidence, well, you know what, ladies? Now is the time. So often when I work with ladies, often when I find them, this is a bit of a fun part of the presentation. Do you look like this? Do you ever wake up thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know which is way up? Feeling exhausted, feeling tired. And this is how I see a lot of females, all bad hair day, just over it, I think. That's what the cat's trying to say. Exhausted, tired, and probably doing so many things for other people and not for themselves. And then I'm so tired of feeling bad about myself. So that's what I'm going to try and help you today, is to try and help you really examine some of those reasons that, I guess, motivate your self-doubt, and then to offer you an opportunity to do something about changing that. So have a look at these. So this is what I always talk about when I'm talking about empowering women. It's about going from feeling exhausted and tired to absolutely zestful and loving life. By the way, the woman on the left-hand side, right, she is 92 years of age. 92 years of age. Well, I'm a heck of a lot younger, and I can tell you something, I wasn't able to do that when I was 22 years of age. So part of my whole thing around the Empowering Women to Thrive is to start looking at, okay, what are we going to do as women to live the lives that we want to live, to be happy in everything that we do, to really, really, you know, spend the time that we can building our confidence and really living the life that we want to live. So the Empowering Women to Thrive initially came out of my work with women. For some of you on the line, and as I said, there's a lot of you, I have a long background also in working in domestic violence. And when I first wrote the Empowering Women to Thrive, it was out of a space where I was coming back from running a leadership program in Fiji, and I had been, unfortunately, part of a very, very sad domestic violence incident where people lost their lives, particularly women and children. And I decided that I'm going to actually start, I call it God's work, really, doing some work around helping women to thrive. So now I help women at all levels and ages, and the Empowering Women to Thrive really is about a conference each year. We run 3 women's retreats a year. We run a 12-stage Empowered Women program face-to-face, and we 3 courses designing it for online. 1- and 2-day programs for women, so building resilience or communicating with confidence, being assertive, how to be emotionally intelligent as a woman, monthly meetups, and of course the monthly webinar. Just one thing I wanted to say to you, and that is that when I wrote the programs, the 1- and 2-day programs like the emotionally intelligent women, the resilient female, communicating with confidence, assertively, managing stress well, etc. Those topics that I have written for women are topics that I chose specifically because as I've moved around over my career and as I've worked with so many women in a whole range of different scenarios, those 12 topics that I wrote to go into the big grand program, if you like, are those issues that I think women struggle with. And those are things like how to have great relationships, how to build their self-belief, their confidence, you know, communicate well, etc., etc. So what I'm showing you or trying to tell you is that the topics that I have written for all of you are specifically chosen based on experience and chatting to women and doing some research both face-to-face and also on Facebook. So when we've finished, I'll encourage you to go and have a look at the website, follow me on LinkedIn, follow the blogs that I write, the posts. It's all about women and it's written for women. So get involved, ladies. So let's move then into self-doubt. So you think you're not good enough, you're not talented enough, you're not smart enough. Or you might think, well, mostly I am, but sometimes I'm not. Or you might say to yourself, I don't believe I'll ever get that top job. Or I don't see how I can be seen as a person of influence or even of great value in the grand scheme of life. So when I was running this program yesterday with these women in this organization, beautiful young woman, 36 years of age, absolutely gorgeous to look at. But her issue is that she's struggling with self-doubt. You know, she tells herself that she's not intelligent. She tells herself that she won't get this job. She tells herself that she's too fat and ugly to get a really nice partner. And I'll tell you what, when I hear these kind of things, and I'm sure that you are on this webinar because some of you or all of you or maybe your daughters or maybe your friends are in this scenario, otherwise why would you be here? And I think the important thing is really to look at where that thinking comes from. You know, you don't just wake up one day and think that you're self-doubting or not smart enough or not clever enough, etc. When you talk about self-doubt, it comes about over a period of time. And often those are little messages that we get when we're younger, in our childhood, etc., where you might have had a person of influence say to you, you know, you'll never get where you want to go, or don't try and be school captain, you'll never get there, etc. But the issue with that, ladies, is that often the messages of the past determine the messages of your future. And quite frankly, it's time to stop that. It's time to really think about what are you going to do about reclaiming your life and how are you going to turn it around, because it's okay. I understand that for many of us, you know, we're struggling with this stuff. I really do understand that. And I guess one of the things I want to say at this stage is so fine. You're struggling with it and it's been part of you for a long time and you're tired of it. And my major question to you is this. So what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? Are you going to allow it to continue to ruin and rule your life? Or are you going to do something about getting rid of self-doubt? Because self-doubt is one of the key things that eats away at your self-esteem. And self-esteem is how you feel about yourself, self-worth, how you value yourself. So if you don't start doing something today, nothing is going to change. We can have the same conversation. You could meet me, you could come and see me, you could go on a webinar. But unless you do something to turn this around, nothing's going to change. So what is self-doubt? Self-doubt is a lack of confidence in yourself and your abilities. So it comes in a whole range of different forms. You know, there's no one thing that says, well, this is exactly self-doubt. So what does it mean? I mean, you, for example, could be somebody who's got a really great job. You go to work and you've got people who work under you or next to you, and people would look at you and say, wow, what an amazing person. You know, they're so gifted and they're so good at what they do, and yet inside you feel anxious, your tummy burns, you get headaches and migraines, you're worried about the fact that maybe you won't be able to do what you want to do. And at the end of the day, here's the thing, is that if you self-doubt, then nobody can help you become more confident. You can get all the validation in the world that you want, but unless you actually start addressing this issue called self-doubt and really challenging the lack of confidence, challenging the voices in your head, not schizophrenia, ladies, but the voices in your head that say, I can't, I won't, I don't think I'll be able to, should I try this, I don't think I'll be able to get where I want to go, then here's the thing, you won't. One of you, for example, emailed me earlier this week and that you're wanting to be a life coach and you're not sure if you can do it. Well, here's my advice to you. Yes, you can do it. Of course you can do it. You might need more education. You might need some more guidance. You might need some more help. But of course you can do it. Why can't you do it? Of course you can do it. I asked this question in one of the other webinars I ran a couple of weeks ago. So let's just talk for half a minute about resilience, right? So here's a question. Let's talk about the former President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. So Abraham Lincoln, I would like any of you ladies on the line to write to me and tell me, how many times do you think that this man attempted to become the United States President before he was successful? So come on, some of you just send me a message. How many times did Abe Lincoln try and become President of the United States before he cracked it? Okay, so I've got 2, nope. I've got 7, nope. I've got 12, nope. Okay, the answer is 19. Now, that was a man who did not have a lack of confidence in himself and his abilities. No matter what happened, he knew that he was going to succeed. And you see all of these motivational quotes about, you know, if you think you will, if you think you can't, you won't. But I think it truly is about if you do believe that you can, and you've got all the skills, in other words, you've got the education and you've got the background, why won't you back yourself? You'll back other people, you'll back your kids, you'll back your best friends, you'll back your mum and your dad and your neighbor. But since when don't you back you? So if we're talking about self-doubt, let me tell you something right now, it's holding you back. And it always will unless you choose to do something about it. So how does it affect you? Well, you're welcome at any time, ladies, to send me a message and tell me how it affects you. You know, does it make you feel upset, or does it make you feel distressed, or how does it affect you? How does your self-doubt keep you back? So what we know from a lot of the background around research in self-doubt is it affects us, it holds you back, it stops you from achieving everything you can and everything you should. It often makes you procrastinate and put things off, fearing failure. How many times do I work with beautiful women who say, oh, Caryn, I haven't got to that. I'd like to, but, you know, I don't want to, or I haven't made the time, or I'm too busy. Whenever somebody, particularly a female, says to me, I'm too busy to do that, I always think, no, you're not too busy. You're too self-doubting to do that. And I think as long as you're self-doubting, well, then you won't get it done. It seeps your confidence away, you know, bit by bit by bit. And so it stops you from achieving the things that you really want to achieve. And for some of us, it even stops us from trying. So I don't believe I can, or I don't think I should try, or I'll never get that job, or I look too fat in the dress, or, you know, what's the use of trying to go for that guy because he'll never look at me. Notice what I've just said to you in those 6 statements are all ways of thinking. And if you want help with ways of thinking, well, there's a whole range of different things that you can do and things that you can learn. But the most important thing is that you have been struggling with self-esteem or low self-esteem for a long time, if not all of your life, then there's a good chance that unless you do something differently, you're going to have the self-doubt for the rest of it. So it's really about thinking about, do you want help to turn your life around? Do you really want to learn to different ways of doing things? So you could get a coach, you could go to self-help books, you could go to programs, but do something, because I think that's a really important thing. It's a relentless inner voice. It's destructive and self-limiting. So here's one thing I want you to do, and maybe if you've got a little piece of paper or a journal or something in front of you. I know some of the women who I speak to say to me that they have a journal, then they just come onto my webinars every month, and they've got a journal that they keep, and every time I run a webinar, they record notes. So you're very welcome to do that. And as most of you know, these webinars are held every month. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to write down that this is a self-doubt webinar, and write down that the homework I want you to do is to record in one day. Now, this is pretty scary, right? But to record in one day, and in all the things that your inner voice, your critical inner voice says to you. So I know it'll be really annoying because you've got to carry your journal, your diary around with you for a whole day. But I had somebody, a young woman I was working with about 2 or 3 months ago, and I asked her to do this exercise, and she had more than 700 negative thoughts in her mind in one day. So here's the thing. If you had 700 destructive and self-limiting thinking or thoughts in your mind, and you're telling yourself, I can't, as opposed to I can, I guarantee you, you will be low in self-confidence and low in self-doubt. So do that as an exercise, and maybe some of you can flick me the answer once you've actually done it and tell me how many times you've recorded negative thinking in your mind in one day that you do the exercise. So there you go. Look at all of the things, ladies, that are holding you back. Self-doubt, look at how it's affecting you. It's seeping away your confidence. It's keeping you down. It's keeping you low. And the question comes back to, what are you going to do about it? So how do you learn self-doubt? Just 2 minutes of my sort of psychology lesson for you. Well, as I said, it's childhood issues. You know, and sometimes people say, well, you know, it's not possible to get rid of childhood issues, Caryn. Well, I think the important thing is to frame it in this way. You know, many people I've worked with and still work with have the most amazingly traumatic childhoods, and really difficult, lots of violence or distress or trauma even. And I guess the most important thing, I've got this saying, is that, and I think I've probably read it before, maybe I, took it from somewhere, but it's, don't let your past dictate your future. If you still carry some of those stuff, then it's time to do something about that. Go and see somebody to resolve those issues so that you leave them in the past so they don't dictate where you're going. And I'm not suggesting that we would walk away from these issues. And if you say, well, those issues are in the past and they don't affect me anymore, I think that's a really healthy thing. But you can't get over them and just pretend they didn't happen, because they did. Parenting styles, very often the way that our parents tell us things or do things, again, Mum, I want to be the soccer captain. Well, darling, why don't you just be the goalie? And sometimes I think our parents don't do those things intentionally, but at the end of the day, they affect us over time. And when those messages are heard time and time and time again, obviously we then keep them in our minds. Past experiences with people or school or being bullied at school or teased or, oh, look, I don't have to tell you, ladies, I think you know this better than I do. And so if you each have to sit there right now and think about, wow, where do my messages of self-doubt come from? I'm sure that you would recognize any of these issues that I've got in front of you and say, yep, that's the first, yep, second, third, yep, they all apply to me. Or some of you might say, well, actually, no, only some apply to me. The most important thing, though, is that it doesn't really matter where they come from in terms of how it's manifested in your self-doubt. What matters is that self-doubt means a glass half empty way of thinking. And as long as you have a glass half empty, it means obviously that it's not a glass half full. Therefore, you're already on the wrong side of the coin. And so your way of thinking when you're feeling self-doubting or you're feeling lacking in confidence is to change that thinking in such a way that you replace it with more realistic thinking, which is more positive. So Sam's asking me, all right, what's an example? Sam, here's an example. I can say to myself, I'm too overweight to wear that dress. I will look horrible in that dress. Now notice negative thinking, notice self-demeaning, self-limiting, and really makes you self-doubt as to whether you could wear that dress or whether you'd ever have the figure to. So essentially it keeps you low in confidence around the dress or the way that you dress or the things that you can dress. Now watch. How would I replace that with a more positive way of thinking? I could say to myself, wow, what a beautiful dress. I would love to be able to wear that. In fact, you know what? 4 years ago, I would have been able to get in that dress. So here's the thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go out of my way to lose weight, get into shape, and within 2 or 3 months, I'm going to be back in that dress. So go me. I've got what it takes, and I'm going to give it my best shot. So then what you do is you go and join the gym or you go for walks and you eat smaller portions. Notice, ladies, that when you've got a negative way of thinking, I'll never get into that dress, and you turn it around, then it gives you somewhere to go. It helps you. But that won't change overnight. It takes a long time to get there, consistent effort, and often help with somebody standing alongside you who can teach you and show you what to do. Entrenched reinforced behaviors of those around you. So, for example, if you're in a relationship with somebody who will then reaffirm that that dress doesn't look good on you or you'll never get into that dress, well, that's not very helpful either. Seeing things as constantly failing, less than, not good enough is often an outcome of self-doubt. And, I really need to reiterate that I firmly believe it's all in the way that we think. And it makes it very simplistic, and it's not, but it is a large part of self-doubt. If you allow yourself to think negatively about yourself, that's how you're going to behave. And if you think negatively about yourself and you behave in a way that I'll never be able to do that or get that job, then that's what you're going to believe over time. So it's really thinking about the messages that you say to yourself. You think you won't get the job you want, you won't. If you think you're not clever enough for a career, then you won't get there. If you set your immediate expectations too high and you don't achieve what you want to, you may be seduced into feeling failure. Here's the thing. Life does not work out for all of us all the time. For some of us, life doesn't work out the way that we want it, full stop. But the most important thing is that for all of us, I think religiously all of us, we might have dreams or we might have things that we want to achieve and they don't come to fruition. And too many women roll over and say, well, what's the point of even trying? So you don't try. And if you don't try, then failure becomes part of what you do. And so what I try and teach women is to say, okay, that didn't work out. It's a pity and I'm frustrated, But okay, I'm going to keep going. Or maybe I've just got to change the route of how I'm going to get there. And I appreciate that all of you, and there's a lot of you on the line, might say, well, that's fine, Caryn, but I don't know how. Well, for those of you who might be interested in learning how, I'm really happy to show you how. Because this is not that difficult if you know how or if you've got somebody to show you how. And many women are in the same boat as you. I could write books. Well, I have written books and still write books about this, you know. And many women say to me, Caryn, I feel so low. I feel so depressed. I feel so unlovable. I feel so upset about my life. I don't know why I'm here. Some really sad and distressing things. And, you know, that's okay. I really appreciate that for many of us, life doesn't blossom in the way that we would like to. But I guess where I come from in terms of the work that I try and do is try and encourage and inspire women to say, okay, it didn't work out. But that doesn't mean that you've got to throw the baby, the bath water, and the bath out. It's about, okay, let me start again and reclaim and start, you know, working out what I can do, even if I failed, if you want to use the word failed in that particular exercise. By the way, I don't use the word failing, ladies. I don't use the word fail. I don't use failed. I never use the word fail. And the reason I don't is because I think when we say words failure, weaknesses is probably my worst word. I never, ever use the word weakness. I will use the word challenge. I will use the word try harder. I will always use the words areas for improvement. But failure and weakness, I don't use it in my vocabulary. And when I'm coaching women, when I'm helping women, when I'm running retreats with women, and when I'm running programs with women, I start actually challenging the language that you use in the same way that I've just explained to you. It's time to really look at how you're living and turn things around. Don't you like the things I left out the end? Sorry about that. Time to really look at how you're living and turn things around. Because unless you do something differently, nothing's going to change. Time to give life a really good go. Stop sabotaging yourself, and mainly you sabotage yourself with the way that you think. So it's time to think about, okay, what am I going to do with where I'm at, both in my career, in my relationship, in how I see myself, with my family, with my in-laws. It doesn't matter the situation. Time to do something. Fear is the basic foundation of self-doubt, and it stops us from doing many things. It strips us of our courage, takes away confidence. So people often say to me, is self-doubt the same thing as fear? No, it's not. It's not. Fear is a much deeper emotion, one of the primal emotions, and self-doubt really is an outcome of fear. But really, if I say, well, people will say to me, so what then is self-doubt? Self-doubt really is around lack of confidence, which is attached to a fear of not succeeding. So self-confidence or lack of confidence attached to fear around, note I say not succeeding as opposed to failure. And I think it's really important to understand that once you are able to really look at the fear and understand what the fear is, then to be able to do something about removing that fear or having an understanding of how to deal with the fear in a way that's more appropriate so that you can start looking at the self-doubt. And I want you to ask yourself, of what are you fearful? What are you scared of? Are you scared of losing somebody? Are you scared of losing something? Are you scared of losing pride? Are you scared of losing your dignity? Are you scared of losing face? What is it that you really are fearful of? And here's something I'm going to say, and I think it's a really important point. I was talking to one of the people I was coaching the other day, a female, and I said to her, she says, I'm really, really fearful of standing up and doing a powerful presentation and, in talking to a group of people at work. And I understand that, taxes and presentations are the two things that we dread. But what's the worst thing that can happen in a presentation if you make a mistake? Well, the worst thing is that you make a mistake. What's the worst thing if you wear a dress that makes you look a little bit overweight? Well, you might look a little bit overweight, but at the end of the day, you feel good, the dress looks great in your life, on your mind, and you're a happy, bubbly person. And ultimately, people don't actually look at the dress, they just love being with you. So I think what I'm trying to explain is that very often it's around more of how you perceive it as opposed to how other people perceive it. And I think that's something to really think about, because very often I think our perceptions and our expectations are much higher or more out of whack than those around us. And it comes back again to those self-limiting beliefs. So ask yourselves, ladies, What are you scared of? And why are you scared? Sometimes when we answer those questions and we really think about those things, when we're able to verbalize them and able to articulate them, we actually reduce their impact on us. So maybe in your journals, for those of you who have got a journal, write these questions down and think about them, because I think they'd be really helpful for you to get your head around. I actually initially said 6 ways to overcome self-doubt, but I can't help myself. For those of you who know me well, I always have to add in a couple of extras, so here we go. Recognize your negative thinking patterns and watch and replace them with constructive thinking. That's so key. I think I've been fairly strong on that throughout this whole webinar. And if you don't know how to do that, then go and find somebody who can help you. And I'm always here if you need the help. Don't hang on to the past. Leave guilt and regret behind. You know, regret, that's a whole nother webinar that I run talking about guilt. I do a lot of work with carers. I run carers retreats, and one of the key things that I talk about is carers guilt. But guilt, you know, unless guilt is helping you become a better person around doing things that are wrong or feeling bad about what you've done, guilt is a wasted emotion. So learn from it and leave it behind. Another really interesting way to overcome self-doubt is stop overgeneralizing. I always do this, or I never am on time, or I always do stupid things, or I never get the job I want. We call them globalizing words. Stop it. Don't overgeneralize and say, I always am late. You say, look, some of the time I am late, but I'm trying really hard not to be. You don't say, I never get math well. You know, I never understand how to count figures. You say, look, I'm not great at it, but at the end of the day, I can do it, and I'm keeping on trying, so I'll be good in time. Notice the positive thinking replaces the negative thinking. Be realistic about you, your expectations, and others. You can't do it all, ladies. You can't be everything to everybody. You can't be Mrs. Perfection, because there is nobody who's Mrs. Perfection. Be realistic about who you are and what you are and the wonderful woman that you are, because gosh knows everybody in your life needs you. Don't compare yourself to others. Somebody will always be richer, poorer, thinner, fatter, uglier, whatever words you want to use. And this is not necessarily only, by the way, ladies, for younger females. So a lot of the time we think, oh, they're 18 to 25, compare themselves to others, you know, and they will say, well, I'm not good looking enough, or I'm not as good looking as my friend, or, you know, the age-old body image is very, very prevalent in the younger females. And one of the things I say about that is it's really interesting, because I actually see a lot of it in the older females, or the more mature females, so sort of 50 to 65, who really constantly compare themselves to others. Now, some of you might say, well, come on, Caryn, they're a bit more mature now. They should be accepting of themselves. Well, yes, we could say they should be, but many of them aren't. So I think, you know, if you don't start to address the self-doubt, what I'm saying is that you carry it with you throughout life. And do you want to, ladies? Do you want to wake up tomorrow morning, one more day, with the same doubt, the same regret, the same lacking in confidence? Do you want to wake up in the next month, in the next 2 months, in the next year with the same issues, or are you committed to doing something about it? In fact, that's a really good question. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very committed, 1 being no, how committed are you to doing something about turning your life around? See setbacks as something to look at and learn from. Too often, when we experience setbacks, women take it personally. Now, you might say, okay, come on, Caryn, you know, he dumped me. How won't I take it personally? Of course, why wouldn't you take it personally? You know, it's rejection. It's a hurt, obviously. It's very, very upsetting. But at the end of the day, get this, right? He might have left you, but look what he left. He left the most amazing, stunning, and sensational woman, and he's gone off with somebody else. Well, look at that. Where's that going to get him? And so setbacks are, you know, you could have, for example, I don't know, crashed a car by mistake and hit a lamppost. God forbid nobody was hurt, but you might say, oh, well, that was a really stupid mistake, and what can I learn from it? Well, I probably wasn't concentrating on the road, and, you know, I need to be more mindful of where I'm driving and what I'm thinking about when I am driving. So what are the learning outcomes from this? Well, I've got to be more careful, as opposed to I'm a bad driver, I'm useless at night, I'll never be able to be a good, person in a car, all those kind of negative self-doubting thoughts that come back into your mind. Learn to be optimistic. Now, I know that's really easy and focus on the positive, but seriously, ladies, it's about really thinking about looking at what life does offer that's good. We're struggling in the world right now. That's a whole nother, for some of you who know me, I run a company called Pure Magic International Business Solutions, and I train leaders and develop teams on 3 continents. And the world is really not doing very well right now, and we talk about leadership. So when I talk about leadership in terms of women, one of my really big goals is to get more women into senior leadership roles. I would like to see more women running countries, frankly, because men ain't doing so well, and I'm not a man basher. Please don't be misunderstanding of that. I've got great men in my life. But I would like to see more women in leadership roles because I think we do it better. And I'm quite vocal about that when I'm standing on stages and conferences talking. I'm very vocal about that. But one of the key things I think we don't always do well is we're not as optimistic as we can be. I think very often, and I think partly it's because we carry so much load on us, is that we're able at times to become exhausted, see things as negative, and just it's all too hard, and what's the point? So part of learning to be optimistic is to be very self-caring, i.e. watch your diet, watch your exercise, make sure you sleep well. Focus on all the things that you do have. Don't focus on the things that you don't. Because each and every one of us, even if we come from the most revoltingly disgusting, hard and hurtful and painful pasts, we all have inner strengths and positives. So what could an inner strength be for that? Well, you're probably really, really resilient. You're probably someone who's independent and can get through anything, even though you don't see it from that perspective. Give life a go. If you don't go, how will you know? So, I think this fear of failure, the self-doubt that we all seem to have, and wherever I go, as I said when I started, too much of it's around. And I just want to see more of you give life a go. And what's the worst thing? You give life a go, you don't succeed, so what? You gave it a go. Get up and keep going. Try again. Don't take it so personally. Tools to use to help you, and there are many. And obviously, it would be best if I could show, I'm thinking of actually running one of the programs around tools to help women become more empowered. Probably would be a one-day seminar, but these are some of them. I call it the debit and credit ledger. Or the pros and cons list, if you like. You've got all the things that you don't do well or things that aren't working in your life on the left, and all the things that are working on your life and you're really good at on the right. And if you're really, really honest with yourselves and you're able to dig deep, because I love that, dig deep, you'll actually find that there's a lot more on the credit list than on the debit list. The fact is that you're focusing on the debit and not the credit. Therefore, you see your life is in deficit a lot of the time. And mostly, it's actually not. Journaling, paying attention to negative thoughts about you and your abilities. And that comes back to what I said just now, is that get a journal. If you don't like a journal, well, get a diary. Why I do appreciate that some people don't like journaling, but why I do like journaling is that particularly if you're struggling with life, it's really a great way to record how you're feeling at any one moment in time. And I think you can always look back at that journal in time and learn from what you have done or what you've come through, and also then track your progress as to how far you have come. Rewrite the movie script. I love this. It's another technique I teach, but it's about, when you've got negative thinking, I call that a negative movie. So it's a movie that's not bad. It's not going to sell well. Nobody wants to go and see it. It's a box office, it's a box office non-event. So what you have to do then is change the movie script, rewrite the movie to be a box office hit. And therefore, that every time you've got the box office non-event thinking in your mind, you replace it with the box office success movie. And ultimately, it's a cognitive behavioral strategy that we use, but it's moving the negative and replacing it with the positive. And ultimately, over time, you've got a new movie script in your head. Now, be realistic. Nobody's perfect. So on some level, we're even. Some people might have more money, some people might have less money. But at the end of the day, I'll tell you what I think. I think that we are all people who we are going through the journey of life, enjoying this time called life or not enjoying this time called life. There's people, as I said earlier, who will be richer than you, poorer than you. But let's just say, for those people who are richer than you, and there must be many, well, I mean, there's certainly quadrillions richer than I am, but that the point is this, that if you think about the people in the world, I mean, Heath Ledger, all the money in the world and, you know, not here anymore. Michael Hutchins, all the money in the world, not here anymore. Christina Nassis, you know, multi-trillionaires. And at the end of the day, none of their lives were perfect, otherwise they would be here. And so on some level, we're actually all even, right? It's just what we do with our lives that's important. And that's what I'm interested in. What are we going to do with you and your life to make it the most wonderful one you can have? Think objectively. Don't make yourself lose the race before you start. And when you lose the race, it's because you get out of bed thinking badly about you and your life. And it's about changing that, as I said. Except there's many things you do well, not all. As opposed to accept that there are many things I don't do well, but some I do. Notice the change of the thinking. You do so many things well, ladies. You really do many things well. And so many people in your lives look to you for inspiration and help. You know, you're a godsend to the people who live around you. You're a godsend to your family. You do many things well, so stop focusing on the things that you don't do well, because they just eat at your self-esteem and they just reinforce your self-doubt. Positive in your thinking. Get a life coach. Get somebody to help you. You know, you've got friends around you, get your friends to help you. Talk to your friends. Although the thing about friends is that friends don't help in terms of, friends can't really give you the strategies or give you the techniques, because very often our friends are too close to us. They want to help us and they want to see our lives be happy, but they don't necessarily have the objectivity, or they may not have the skills to do so. So give life a go no matter what. The Empowering Women program takes you from this self-doubting, lacking confidence to this. It's time, ladies, to wake up to a new future and a different way of being. So the Empowering Women Thrive program, just so you know, I'll reiterate monthly webinars. Some of you are on the monthly webinars, I can see. We've got many women at the moment. We've probably got about 40 of you online. That's a lot of you. And what's really interesting, welcome to those ladies who are from overseas. I see we've got a couple from Denmark. I have no idea how you get information about my webinars, but you're welcome. I've got 2 from the States, some from Fiji, Bulavanaka, Vanaka, Vakalevu, my Fijian sisters, and some from New Zealand, and of course, 2 from Africa, and the rest are from beautiful Australia. 3 women's retreats a year, residential programs, trying desperately to get some sponsorship and some funding to get as many women on these retreats as we can. Obviously coaching, I do lots and lots of coaching. 1- and 2-day training programs such as these: Becoming Personally Empowered, the Emotionally Intelligent Women, Women Who Communicate with Confidence, the Stress-Free Resilient Women, and Women in Leadership in Business. So lots and lots of work that we're doing around women, helping women to become better professionally, and I guess more so with a focus on personally. I was just told, I don't know if any of you read it on my blogs or my posts, that one of the CEOs, a woman I coached last year, was appointed the CEO, the 2016 Australian CEO of the Year. So that was really fabulous for us that she actually got there. And I must tell you, she's had a lot of challenges in her leadership, but she's got there in the end, and she's doing a fantastic job. And I was so, so delighted that she was chosen, i.e. a woman was chosen as the CEO of the Year. I do not drink alcohol, but if I did, I would have had a bottle of champagne the night that we were told. So you see, she didn't think she could do it, and look, she did. Just with a little bit of objectivity, a little bit of guidance, a little bit of help, and a lot of positive thinking and thinking about what she's done, she's just turned her life and her business around. Go Viv Allenson. And then next year we will be holding our first annual Empowering Women's Conference, and I've got hopefully some speakers from the States, and so lots of great stuff happening in this space. So what I thought I would do is I do a lot of traveling, obviously most of you know, but I've open time right now to help you do a strategic life review. So it's time to throw away the doubt, get rid of the fear, and be courageous to turn your life around and do something. So the life review is of no cost to you. Probably take us about 30, 40 minutes. And if you want to have a life review with me, you're very welcome to do so. I don't have a lot of time, but what I have done is if you go onto my time trade calendar, you will find some times that are available. and if you like to book them in, what you do is you go into this website and my calendar will come up, and then you book a time in, and then we spend some time really looking at your life and working out what you're going to do if you feel that you would love the help. So time to turn things around, time to become the best version of you that you can be. And as always, I look forward to working with all of you, collectively or individually. So it's been a pleasure talking to you this evening. Do any of you have any questions that you would like to ask me? Because if you do, now's the time. Okay, so I've got a question here from Sue. Sue's question is about learning or having self-doubt as a child. And she says to me that she's been battling with self-doubt ever since. And she's asking me, so will she always be somebody who's self-doubting because of the nature of her history? And my answer to that is no, I don't believe so. I believe that, and I've seen it, I've witnessed this, I've worked with women for so many years, I believe that you can turn it around. I definitely think that, you can't say to yourself, as I said earlier in the webinar, oh, look, that didn't happen, or I'm just going to ignore my past. The fact is that your past is your past, and your past is often the fabric of what helps make you the beautiful person that you are today. But what you can do is that you can start changing the way that you think about yourself and, your abilities and the way that you explain life to yourself, and start thinking more positively, as I've showed you throughout the webinar. And ultimately then to really start seeing things as much more positive. Because here's the thing, the more positive you are, the less self-doubting, the more confident you are, the less lacking in confidence. You tend to be happier, ladies. You tend to live more joyously. You tend to be more joyful. And ultimately, that's all we want to be, anybody, no matter how much money we have or don't. We want to be happy. We want to be healthy. We want people around us to be happy and healthy. And if we need to do this, then I think that very often, quite frankly, it's about getting help to do it. So Sue tells me she's 42 years of age. Sue, if you're 42 years of age, you probably will struggle a little bit to be able to do it on your own. So you know what? Book yourself into time trade tomorrow or whenever it is and speak to me and let's turn it around. So thank you, ladies. I've loved being with you this evening, and feel free to go onto the website. It's there, www.carynwalsh.com.au, and I would love to hear from you, each and every one of you in the future, and I would love to actually be able to do a session with you on a life review. So lovely speaking to you. Take care. God bless. Look after yourself, and I will see you on Time Trade. Speak soon. Bye.